Hello everybody. Hello. Welcome back to another video. I don't know if it's recording. It looks like it's recording, but maybe it's not. I've had this happen twice now. Today we are reading His Reasons by AshleyH713. I'm gonna hope we're gonna get through chapters 3 and 4, possibly 5 if I have the voice for that. Let's begin. Amari rounded the corner of the hallways until she found a very tall door with the numbers 1A on the side of the wall. It took a while, but she had finally found it. Man, this school is huge. Pushing the door open, she was met with about 15 students, all waiting for class to start. When she walked in, they all seemed to have noticed her presence, but the only thing she could focus on was her brother's angry expression in the corner. "Oh, you have got to be shitting me. No way. Go find another class, brat." At his words, the students gasped their mouths opened and connected the dots. "Hey, you were Baku-chan, right? The second highest recommended?" Amari smiled and awkwardly raised her hand up to greet them, ignoring her brother's words. Yeah, that's me. Although you can just call me Amari. It would be way easier." The class all shook their heads in agreement, and she bowed once. "I can't wait to get to know all of you." Everyone seemed stunned by this and looked at other two bakugo. That grammar's horrible. Looked at Katsuki Bakugo, then back to her. "Hey, Bakugo, are you sure she's related to you? You two seem like polar opposites." It was true. Amari and Katsuki were probably as different as they could be. Katsuki was tall, muscular, and had a big mouth, while Amari was way shorter, reaching only to his lower chest, with a skinny build and a kinda cutesy attitude. It certainly was strange. The only thing that was the same was their matching hair and eyes. Bakugo just scoffed at his classmates, obviously not in the mood. "Shut up." Amari was a bit more kind though, nervously laughing. "It doesn't seem that way, does it? We didn't really grow up with each other. Is it that obvious?" Everyone just nodded their heads without hesitation, and Amari's eyes dropped a little. Suddenly the door opened to her left, and everyone turned to see who it was. The voice sounded scared and uncertain. Hello?" Focusing her eyes, Amari lightened up when she realized who it was. "Ah, Midoriya, you made it." Deku recognized her right away and went straight into a bow, clearly nervous. "Ah, yes, hello, Baku-chan. Amari-chan, it's good to see you too." She couldn't help but laugh at this. "If it's too hard, you don't have to call me by my first name. I don't want you to pull something." But Deku put his hand out to stop her. "No, it's okay. I'll get better, I promise. Besides, you seem really uncomfortable when I call you by your last name, and I want to be good friends, so..." Her eyes couldn't help but widen at this. The fact that he figured out that she was uncomfortable with her last name after just one encounter was surprising. This boy was someone to look out for, definitely not to be underestimated. Letting her lips curve into a smile, Amari replied, "Well, thank you, I appreciate it, Midoriya." Deku couldn't help but blush at this, and Katsuki was getting really pissed off at the encounter. She really needed to stop being so nice to Deku. "Oi, you two are getting on my nerves already. Just find a damn seat and shut up." The two froze at his statement, and Amari answered back apologetically. "As much as he's annoying, he's right. I better go find my seat. See you around?" Deku nodded his head maybe a little too fast, and Amari just put a hand up to say goodbye. The teacher was gonna be here at any minute. She needed to do this quickly. Finding a small name tag in the back row, Amari walked up to it and placed her bag on the desk. Then she sat down and couldn't help but think about her speech back in the auditorium. She hoped it was good enough. Somehow her mind slipped from the speech back to that boy who she had utterly embarrassed herself in front of. It was his fault in the first place for asking so many questions. And did he not know anything about personal space? Ah, well, now it's over. Now she wouldn't have to see him ever again. She could just focus on class, never to see that weird tomato boy again. Amira laughed to herself and began to pull the books out of her bag. When Felt saw a blur next to her, seemingly taking their seats. They must be her neighbor. Thinking about not being rude, she turned to the person next to her and smiled, introducing herself. Hello, you must be my neighbor. My name is... But slowly her words stopped when she realized just who was sitting next to her. It was him, the tomato boy, Todoroki. Then without thinking, she gave out a huge scream, almost acting like he was a bug or a spider on the ceiling. I can't. No, it's not gonna happen. Everyone in class turned around to her, given the huge noise, and stared. Amari feeling the heat rise up to her cheeks. Why him? Why did she have to sit next to him of all people? One of the students poked her on the shoulder because she seemed frozen and questioned. Hey, Amari? Are you okay? Clicking her brain back into place, she tried to backtrack once again, although it kind of just sounded like unconvincing rambling. Yeah, I'm good. So good. Are you good? 'Cause I'm really good. I mean, aren't we all good? Who isn't good? It seemed like it didn't work, though, as the students all looked at her like she was crazy. Right. Bakugo just put a disappointed hand up to his face. Was she always this spastic when they were kids? Once they turned around, Amari's face planted herself onto her backpack and groaned internally. Alright, this was alright. She could just fix everything. Yeah, that's right. It could have been an easy mistake. He might have not even heard it. Composing herself, she turned back to him and put up an apologetic hand. Hey, so I'm really sorry about what happened at the opening ceremony. I guess I was just really nervous, you know? Todoroki looked down for a moment before turning to look at her with his usual piercing gaze she now knew. So calling someone pretty is usually something you do when you're nervous. Good to know. Feeling the sweat start to accumulate, Amari tried to brush it off. Crap, he did hear it. Well, no, not usually. It's just sometimes I say things before my brain can process them. They don't really mean anything, though, so don't worry about it. He seemed in thought for a moment before she watched his lips curve into a clear sign of amusement. I've noticed. Well, at least he was enjoying himself. Amari, on the other hand, was freaking out. Right, so I was wondering if we could, forget that ever happened and start over, like, maybe we could be friends? Suddenly, his amusement was gone, left only with that unusual stoic persona he liked to have. His eyes then seemed distant. I don't think so. Blinking once, Amari laughed nervously and tried to explain herself. Look, I know what I did was kind of weird, but I promise it's not like that all the time. Well, I can't really promise that, but I'll try. Todoroki then put his hand up and cut her off. It's not that. We can't be friends. Not understanding, Amara turned her head to the side. Why not? That's when his piercing gaze returned, this time more intense than usual. It was like he was staring into her soul with the amount of fiery passion there. He looked serious. Because you are my enemy. Letting the words soak in, Amari pointed a finger to herself, not fully understanding. There was a slight chill in the air now, and she couldn't help but shiver. Me? How am I... Although she was cut off when a tall man in a bright yellow sleeping bag inchwormed into the class and called out in a boring tone. Alright, I'm Azawa Shota, your homeroom teacher. Now, all of you get changed and hurry outside. We're going to have a test. Everyone in class gasped at this, including Amari. A test on the first day of school? That was certainly odd. One by one, everyone stood up to go change, and when she whipped her head back towards Todoroki, she was surprised to see him gone as well. What even was that? He was so intense. More so than usual. She silently wondered what he meant when he called her his enemy. That's not how she saw Todoroki at all. But she now knew one thing for sure. Amari was continuing to dig herself an even deeper hole than before. Once they had changed, the class was escorted into some kind of training building. It was dome-shaped with a protective layering on the sides. Must have been so people could freely use their quirks. Lining up, Amari decided to stand next to Deku, rather than her brother, or Tomato Head. Both of them clearly looked like they didn't want to talk to her. Fair enough. Nudging her elbow, Amari whispered to her new friends, "Hey, what do you think the test is going to be?" Deku just shrugged, noticing that he was sweating more than usual. "I don't know. I hope it isn't anything too serious." She nodded her head in agreement and watched Aizawa stand on the stage next to them. "All right, it's time to start the test. I will be pairing you off in groups of 2, and you will have 3 minutes to defeat your opponent. If neither of you succeed, it will count as a draw. A defeat is less points than a draw, so try to stay in the ring as much as possible." Everyone seemed on board with the idea as the teacher continued. "The goal is to fight before the class discovers what each other's quirks are. In a real battle with villains, this idea is more realistic." Then he pointed to his clipboard and sighed. The ones with the lowest points in the battle will be punished with expulsion. Are there any questions? I sure hope not. This got everyone riled up. What did he mean, expulsion? So basically, if you are the weakest in the battle, you get expelled? That seemed a little rough. Amari glanced to Deku, only to find him literally shaking. "Midoriya? Hey, are you okay?" Although it seemed he couldn't hear her, only listening to the sound of Bakugo's laugh. "Good. Now I get rid of you two useless weaklings faster than I thought." This caused him to shake more, Amari putting a supportive hand on his shoulder. "Don't listen to him. You're gonna do great, okay? I mean, there's a reason you were accepted to UA, right?" Deku thought hard about her sentence, remembering everything he did to get to this point. She was right. He could do this. Maybe, possibly, okay, maybe not. Aizawa's voice carried over the crowd once again, turning the page in his clipboard. "All right, the first match will be between Todoroki." Amari watched him step on the stage and shook her head. Whoever battled him was going to have it rough. Just then, Aizawa finished his sentence. "And Amari Bakugo." Her eyes widened at this point as her mouth gaped open. Why was the universe this cruel? Knowing she had to do something, Amari shakily got on stage next to Todoroki, Aizawa speaking over them. "We will start with our top 2 most recommended students. Now go over to the ring." Todoroki turned to leave when she called out to him, trying to even the ice just a little. "Hey, good luck out there." He looked at her sharply for a moment before leaving the area. Wow, not even a word. He must really have something against her. As she got in place, Amari felt a rough hand on her arm and turned to find Bakugo staring at her in anger. "You better not use your quirk, damn it." His fingers tightened around the area, and she looked up to meet his eyes. What was he even talking about? I kinda have to. That's the whole point." Gritting his teeth, he pulled her even closer, now gaining the attention of the entire class. "Did you lose a couple brain cells? I won't let you." Amari narrowed her eyes when the teacher called out. "What is it, Bakugo?" Turning towards him, her brother twisted her arm just slightly, showing him, "She's not fighting. I'm withdrawing her." Her eyes grew wide at this point. Now he wanted to be the protective big brother. It was kind of funny. "Katsuki, let me go. I'm doing this." With a bored expression, Aizawa replied, "If she doesn't fight, she'll be expelled." Bakugo's brow lowered and answered, "That's fine." Twisting away, Amari protested, "No, it's not fine. You are overreacting. I'm fighting, Mr. Aizawa." Nodding his head, he pointed back to the ring. You heard her, Bakugo. If you don't let her go, let her fight, then I'm going to have to expel you as well. Bakugo thought about the possibilities that lay before him and realized that this was stupid. As much as he wanted to protect his sister, he also didn't want to get expelled. Then what help would he really be? Reluctantly letting go, Amari rubbed her arm and moved away from him, but not before looking him dead in the eyes and speaking. Watch me, Katsuki. Then she turned back to the ring to find Todoroki looking rather bored. That altercation must have took a while. Stepping to the edge, the teacher spoke. All right, you have 3 minutes to defeat your opponent. The countdown starts now. A large clock above them started counting down from 1 minute, and the two challengers took a step closer to each other. Knowing she didn't have a ton of time, Amari reached into her back pocket and pulled out a small bag before choosing a white-colored pill and swirling it around in her hand. Amari stared at the pill for a moment before looking up at Todoroki apologetically. I'm sorry, Todoroki. He seemed confused by this. For what? She just sighed and placed the pill between her teeth before swallowing it. I'm sorry, I can't go easy on you. The boy's eyes widened as her face quickly changed into one of absolute intent. My brother is watching me. Suddenly the bell rang and Todoroki wasted no time throwing a huge wave of ice towards the girl, hoping that this would be over quickly. It crashed into her and he was about to relax when a shimmering gold substance caught his eye. She looked to be coated in some glowing gold matter. He let another ice wave go, but it just bounced off her, like she was using some sort of protective coating against quirks. Oh, so that was it. Todoroki didn't have time to process, though, as Amari raced towards him. Her smile was completely gone. Ah, yes, this was the face of the number 2 recommended. Racing forward to punch him, he took the chance and turned just in time, grabbing her arm and throwing her away from him. She crashed into the ground and groaned before picking herself up and trying again, in the exact same manner. He thought she was foolish for trying the same attack twice, but when he touched her arm, he was met with a burning sensation throughout his whole body. It was like a gold coating. The gold coating was scalding hot. Grunting, Todoroki pushed her away with a blast of ice, causing her to reach further and further away from him. Close combat was not the way to go with her. Amira crashed into the wall, and her protective coating faded away. There must have been a time limit on that, he marked in his mind. He started to attack her with shards of ice, but when she was able to dodge under and over with them with ease, who even was this girl? Todoroki tried a different strategy then, stomping his foot on the ground, covering the entire floor with ice. It creeped up the sides, and Amari wasn't fast enough, causing her foot to be encircled in the trap. She cursed to herself, feeling her foot slowly growing numb from the cold. Knowing he had won, Todoroki called out to her. Say you give up. I'm not great at monitoring the temperatures, so your foot could fall off. Amara gritted her teeth, feeling the cold seep into her bones. Her teeth began to chatter. All right, I. Suddenly the gold matter swirled under Todoroki's feet, creating a circle around them. That circle then crept up, creating a dome, isolating him from the rest of the arena. What? Amara's lips curved up into a small smirk before pointing. I needed you in one spot. Thank you. Then she started to close her fist, and the dome began to shrink smaller and smaller. Deku gasped, realizing this was the same move she did during that sludge villain battle. She was cornering him. Bakugo watched the fight with hollow eyes. When did she learn to fight like that? It was almost as if the girl he saw as a child was a completely different person to the one standing before him now. Todoroki touched the top of the dome, only to have him pulled back and curse. It was the same sort of matter as the gold coating she had before. It burned him to even touch it. The area grew smaller and smaller, and when the edges touched his back, he gritted his teeth in pain. Soon his whole body would be burned if he didn't stop this. Amira forgot about the feeling in her foot and locked eyes with the boy, mocking his words. Now you say you give up? I really don't want to barbecue someone today. Todoroki grunted as the dome touched his bare skin and knew he had to do something. And that wasn't admitting defeat. Using his hand, he pulled against the dome, letting his eyes shoot into the top while screaming at the intense pain it brought. Her eyes widened at this move, when suddenly the dome shattered into pieces, and Amari felt a pain explode in her chest. No one had ever broken her barrier before. She felt the pain rise until she began to cough aggressively. It felt like something within her had broken. Wiping her mouth, Amari found blood, but quickly shook it off, feeling the absolute intent off of Todoroki. This guy, he was a monster. Bakugo's eyes widened at the sight of blood, wanting nothing but to race into the ring and pull her out before she killed herself, although he knew he couldn't, which pissed him off even more. Amari looked down at her foot before willing the heat to melt the ice. It shattered beneath her. Putting up a protective shield, Amari ran at him just as Todoroki did the same. It seemed neither of them wanted to back down. Both of them were disappointed at that. They both reached their hands up only for the buzzer to go off above them. The teacher shouted back, "All right, time. It's a draw." The two of them froze as they realized that the 3 minutes were up. Glancing towards the class, everyone seemed shocked as well. They had completely forgotten about the timer. Whipping a drop of blood that had formed, she turned back to find Todoroki leaving the circle, and there was no way she was going to let it end like that. Amara raced after him, pulling his arm to get the boy to stop. "Hey, hold on." Todoroki ripped the arm away, seeming mad for some reason. "What, you want to gloat?" Not really understanding, she put her hands out. "What? No, I just wanted to say you looked cool out there." This got him to pause. Usually an opponent would either yell at him for winning or gloat for beating him. What was this girl thinking? Noticing that she got his attention, she raced forward, jumping like a small dog, and nodded excitedly. "Yeah, you were so amazing. I've never had anyone break my barrier before, and that floor freeze move was also super cool. You are amazing, Todoroki." He was taken back by her words, suddenly feeling a little embarrassed. "What, are you a fan?" Amara paused for a moment before rubbing the back of her head in an awkward fashion and smiling. "I guess so. I guess I've joined the Todoroki fan club." Todoroki wasn't expecting her to take his sarcasm so seriously and grew even more embarrassed. "That's not even a thing." He looked back on this girl and wondered if she was the same one that he fought just now. Todoroki hated to admit it, but if that fight went on, he wasn't sure if he could have won. Her moves, they were so calculated and precise. He knew he shouldn't have underestimated her. A thick silence grew before Amari spoke again. "Hey, so what did you mean by 'I'm your enemy'?" She seemed really bothered by it, which confused him. Did she really not know? "Because if I want to be the #1 hero, then you are my biggest threat." Amari blinked a couple times, soaking up the reason he gave before laughing. "Oh, that. You don't have to worry about that. I don't want to be the #1 hero or anything. That's not why I joined UA." That was the only reason anyone went to UA. What other kind of reason was there? Then why? You never answered my question earlier. She thought for a moment, and Todoroki could see a bit of sadness in her eyes at the question. It was the same during the open ceremony as well. What was she hiding? Then seemingly the sadness was gone, replaced by the playful tone. "I'll tell you if you practice with me this weekend." He obviously wasn't expecting this. "What? Didn't I already say we are enemies? I can't train with the enemy." But Amari just pouted. "And I'm telling you that we aren't. Come on. I could use the practice, and I want you to show me some more of those cool moves. You were really good, Todoroki. Maybe a little too good." She smiled just then, and Todoroki tried to figure out her alternative plan. Maybe she wanted to spy on him and get closer in ranks, or steal some of his moves and practices. This had a terrible idea written all over it. But then he thought of something else. If he trained with her, then he could find her weakness as well, being able to use it in future battles. It was risky, but he had the guts. This could be the opening he needed to beat her, and then eventually his father. This could work. Sighing heavily, Todoroki replied, swinging his bag over the shoulder. "Fine. Leave Saturday free." Amari's face lightened at this and squeaked, jumping around before hugging him tightly. Thank you. You won't regret it, I promise. I'll get there super easy, and I'll try really hard, and it will be great." The close contact caused him to blush and push her away, slowly understanding what he had just agreed to, muttering, "I'm beginning to regret this already." Then he walked away before she could attack him again. He just had to be patient. This girl was the key to finishing off his father. He just knew it. They have a date. Well, it's not really a date. Okay, so that's not part of the story. My apologies. Chapter 4. Todoroki arrived at the meeting spot in the center of town only to find Amari already waiting for him. She had her hair in a ponytail while wearing some basic gray sweatpants and carrying a large crimson duffel bag. He was already 10 minutes early. How on earth was she already here? She spotted him through the crowds and excitedly waved over to him like a small puppy would do when his master came home. Now that he thought about it, that was a good comparison to her. Annoying, loud, and jumpy. "Todoroki, over here! Hurry up, slowpoke!" Sighing and already regretting his decision, he strolled up to her. She obviously didn't notice the people staring around her. "How long have you been here waiting?" She looked at her watch and verbally counted in her head before grinning. 2 hours. His mouth dropped at that. 2 hours? You said 1:00, right? Nodding her head, Amari just waved at him. "Yeah, but I couldn't help it. I'm just really excited to hang out with my new friend." She slapped his back playfully and Todoroki just pulled away. "What did I tell you? We can't be friends." Amari put a finger to her lips and smiled. Then she knew something he didn't. "We'll see. Come on. I booked us a room already." Then without looking back, she turned on her heels and started walking to the destination, leaving the boy behind. He soon realized this and ran to catch up to her. "Hey, hold on. Wait a minute." Once they reached the training room, Amari threw her stuff on the ground and stretched her arms. "All right, what will it be first, Todoroki?" At the name, he raised an eyebrow. "Did you just call me Tomato?" Laughing nervously, she pulled out a water bottle and waved her hand away. "What? Pfft, no, that would be really weird. I think you're hearing things." Although he wasn't buying her case, he didn't know her for long, but that totally sounded like something she would have said, right? Then got down to business, pointing to the circle. "We should start with some sparring, since that's what comes natural. That way I can see your techniques." Amari nodded at her head, put out a hand, stopping him from starting. "Hold on a minute." Pulling a small packet from her pocket, Todoroki realized she was grabbing the same kind of pill as last time. Did she take one before every fight? She quickly put it up to her lips and swallowed it, causing him to ask, "What is that?" But Amari remained silent. This is until a familiar smirk overcame her face. "I think you should focus on other things, Todoroki." Then without another word, she raced towards him with intent, causing the boy to be shaken. Why had she just avoided the question? No matter. He had other things to handle. Bringing his hand out, a wave of ice launched to her, only to have her block it with her gold matter shield. "Nice try, Tomato." Noting the nickname, he couldn't help but smirk while firing a sheet of ice below her. "See? You lied." Amari just acted appalled by his comment, quickly jumping over the spot before she touched the ground. "I'm offended. I would never." They were face to face now as Amari launched a fist towards his face, only to have him block it easier. Height was definitely not on her side. Height may not have been, but the ground was, she thought, as Amari kicked Todoroki's leg from underneath him, causing him to fall on the floor in a thud. A large dome covered his body, and Amari stood over him proudly. "You give up?" As he was grunting under the pressure, Amari had thought she had won. That was until he smirked at her. Not understanding, she followed his gaze and noticed that a sheet of ice had blocked her circle, leaving an opening for his power to seep through. Then in a flash, Todoroki pressed his hand to the ground, the ice creeping up to her foot and slowly covering her entire body. She shivered at the contact, and the shield went down because of the shock. Feeling the temperature rise, she could feel her lips turn blue as Todoroki stood up without difficulty. "We'll stop here because I know you won't give up." Using his left hand, Todoroki touched the ice surrounding her chest, causing the area to melt and thaw. Amari gasped as she was set free from her chains and tried to catch her breath. He had learned from their last fight already. Man, he was good. His voice echoed in her ears while standing over her. "You have talent, but you are too proud and let your guard down easily. A villain wouldn't have been as nice as me." Finally, gaining back her breath, Amari stood up to meet him. "Yeah, believe it or not, I've been told that before. That was a good round, though." He nodded his head in response, but changed the topic. What else do you want to practice? That is, unless you want to tell me why I'm not your enemy now. Realizing where he was going with this, Amari smirked. Don't get ahead of yourself. I think I have a few ideas. The practice went on for a couple hours before they decided to call it quits. It was around dinner time now, and whether or not they liked it, the two were getting worn out. Breathing heavily, Amari grabbed her towel and wiped the sweat. You aren't too bad, Todoroki. Well, I knew that already, though. He sat down on the bench and ran a couple fingers through his hair. You aren't too bad either. Of course, I still won. Now are you going to tell me why you joined UA? Amari was silent for a moment before jumping out of her seat and pointing. Wait right there. Then she hurried off while grabbing her duffel bag, leaving the poor boy confused. Although he didn't have to wait long as she emerged in a simple white lacing off the shoulder top and a galaxy blue skirt with small ribbons on the side. It looked like a complete 180 from her previous outfit. She twisted around for dramatic effect and posed. What do you think? Although Todoroki seemed dumbfounded. What are you doing? Frowning, Amari reached down and grabbed his hand before pulling him from his seat. Come on, let's go have some fun. Todoroki just looked confused and pulled away his hand. You never answered my question. She looked away for a moment before winking and pressing a finger to her lips. I'll tell you after this. Come on, please. Her eyes turned sparkly and bright, which caused him to cave. He just had to endure it. Everything would be worth it. Fine. Amara squeaked in happiness and pulled him along outside into the streets and down the busy sidewalk. The first place she dragged him to was a small cake shop on the edge of town where she picked out 2 huge slices and ate them at the table. This is so good. Although he had just seemed lost about this whole thing. Now are you going to tell me? But she just shook her head and passed him a piece of cake, smiling. Here, you try it. Todoroki groaned internally as he accepted the cake. What was her master plan in all of this? The second place she took him was an indoor mall of sorts. He watched as she strolled through the aisles without a care in the world, feeling a sense of irritation in his throat. He should have just gone home. Why hadn't he? Was he really that curious to learn why she claimed she wasn't a threat to him? Why did she want his friendship that badly? It didn't make sense. Amari called over to him and flung some clothes in his direction before pushing him to the dressing room. Hey, try these on. I know they'll look good. Before he could argue, he was inside the room, looking down at the clothes she had picked. It was okay. It was all worth it. At least that's what he kept telling himself. After the 10th place, the two of them were walking into a nearby park when Todoroki snapped. If you aren't going to tell me that I'm going home. He turned away from her, feeling frustrated when she reached out to him in desperation. Wait, I'm sorry, I've been avoiding it. You could clearly tell that much as the tone in the air grew more somber. Amari patted the head next to her. Fine. Gonna have to do it sometime since I promised you. You might want to sit down. Todoroki complied and sighed, asking the question he had been wondering all day. Why do you keep claiming I'm not your enemy? Amari smiled to herself and looked at her hand before answering. Because your goal is to be top hero. By the time you accomplish that, I'll probably no longer be here. The air grew thin at her words as he was wondering the meaning. What do you mean by that? Are you moving away? She seemed to find that funny. Something like that. Let's just say I can't really think about long-term goals like that. Todoroki was silenced at that, letting her continue. She sighed and pulled out the small box that she always carried with her, gazing at the pills. He asked what these were. You see, when I was born, I was very weak. Still am. When my quirk awakened, I almost died because of it. My body just isn't strong enough to maintain it. Picking up one of the pills, she swirled it around in her hand. These pills, they are filled with nutrients and energy. If I take one before using my quirk, it can sustain my body for a short time. That's how I can fight. He looked down at the pill. A new question came to mind. What happens if you fight without taking one? Amari paused and stared at her feet before answering. Then I'll die. It's as simple as that. My body can't handle my quirk, so if I use it without the pills, I wouldn't survive. Todoroki's eyes widened at this. The risk was so great. How could she be okay with using something that could potentially kill her? Stretching her hands out, Amari then chuckled at some unseen joke. Well, it's not like it matters if I take them or not. It's just a fact someday my quirk will kill me. The pills are only a temporary solution. It's almost guaranteed that one day they'll just stop working and then I'll be out of luck. Gasping at this, Todoroki realized what she had just said and connected the dots. She didn't have any long-term goals because she knew she wasn't going to live that long. That's why she said they weren't enemies. Why? He didn't know why, but it made his chest ache. He then realized that maybe he shouldn't have been so rough on her during their fights. What if he pushed her too hard? She seemed to have read his mind, though, only smiling sadly. You must be wondering why I would do something so dangerous, right? That I must have a death wish? Amari then took his silence as an answer, swirling her fingers in the grass carefully. You see, I could very well live a normal, boring life without using my quirk, sitting on the sidelines, being happy until I grow old. Then she turned to him, and Todoroki couldn't help but notice the emotion in her eyes. Or I could live with just a few years and do something worthwhile with my life. Saving people, helping others. I could be what I always dreamed to be and make a difference in this world. I could be a hero. The stars shined around her as he felt her true passion and determination. She was willing to give up everything for just a few years of doing what she loved. It was tragic. It seemed she had already come to terms with her death. Todoroki remained speechless at this point, not knowing what to say. Finally, his voice came out in a soft whisper. Aren't you afraid? She thought about this for a moment before sighing heavily. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't, but I realized a long time ago that if I wanted to accomplish my goal, then I would have to do it myself. That's why I don't want to be the strongest hero. I just want to be remembered somehow. He recalled his bet with his father and realized that all of that seemed foolish compared to this. In fact, if he was given the same circumstances, Todoroki wasn't sure if he would be able to do what she was doing. For the first time in his life, Todoroki thought someone was fearless, and he wanted to know her. You're amazing. At his words, her cheeks lit up, obviously not expecting that response. What? I mean, I wouldn't call it amazing, I'm just playing the cards I've been dealt, and everything, and, He couldn't help but smile at her flustered nature, a new question popping into his head. Is that why you joined UA then? Just then, her smile fell. Not really. I mean, that is part of it, but that wasn't my real reason. This got him more curious. Then why? The air stood silent, and Todoroki knew she was at war with herself in that moment, debating if she should tell him or not. You don't have to tell me if it's painful, but she just put her hand up and sighed. No, it's fine. You've already heard this much. I guess I've just never told anyone this before. Putting her head in her hands, she smiled bitterly. See, this is why I wanted to get the cake first. It's not the happiest of conversations. He recalled the places she dragged him to and instantly regretted feeling annoyed by that. She was just trying to avoid this conversation as much as possible. This must be really hard for her. Breathing in a shaky breath, she answered finally. I joined UA because of my brother, Katsuki. Amara then looked down at her hands, remembering something unpleasant. When we were kids, Katsuki used to always say that a bakugo needed to be strong, the strongest of them all, and I just wasn't. Hell, I was on the verge of death once or twice. I just couldn't be what he wanted. Closing the hand, she continued. Before I left for America, I saw him playing with a couple of his friends, and they asked if he knew who I was, and he said no. Katsuki was so ashamed to have me as his sister that he never mentioned me to anyone, and I thought at the time I deserved it. Todoroki just listened as she poured her heart out, noticing a slight crack in her voice. So when I went to America, I tried my hardest to become strong like him, so I could be worthy. I underwent dozens of surgery and high-level trainings just so I could stand next to him. Pulling her skirt up slightly, he gasped when he saw the overlapping scars and cuts on her body. There were even a couple of burn scars. What the hell even happened to her? She must have noticed his look of horror and pulled it back down. I'll save you the details, trust me, you don't want to know. Then she pulled her legs up to her chest and continued. I could care less about being the #1 hero. I don't care about the social status. You see, all I want is for my brother to finally be proud enough to acknowledge me as his sister. Then I can die happily. Todoroki thought about her interactions with Bakugo until now, and a heavy, furious heat started to rise from within him. This girl was literally breaking apart for him, and he was still treating her like trash. He didn't know how much she really loved him. Amari wiped the side of her face, and he realized that there were tears in the corner of her eyes. That's when she noticed him staring and turned away. A little busy, Davina.
I know, this is not gonna
No, you can't. I'm doing something. Close the door. No. Close the door. Okay, leave the door open. I'll close the door. Lock it too. I lock it.
Open that door. That's hugging her.
That's when she noticed him staring and turned away. Ah, crap, I promised I'd stay cool. Look at me, I'm such a mess. He didn't know why, but Todoroki wanted to clear those tears himself, although he stopped himself with another question. Does he know? You know about everything? Amari knew who he was referring to and shook her head. Katsuki knows that I'm not supposed to use my quirk, but he doesn't know that I'm shortening my life every time I do activate it. I think he'd probably pull me out of UA and kill me if he found that out, and oh boy, that would be scary. She laughed to herself, but Todoroki could see the sadness in her eyes. He now knew what that meant, and he hated it even more. Suddenly, Amari slapped her face and stood aggressively. Well, that's just how it is. Not like I have time to be sad about it or anything. Hey, can we get some milkshakes on the way home? I'm having a craving. Usually he would have found her outburst as annoying, but now he knew better. Standing up as well, he replied, Sure. Amari jumped for joy before realizing something. Wait, does this mean we can be friends, that I've proved that we aren't enemies? He thought for a moment before today he was so ready to turn her down no matter what her explanation was, but it seemed she was right. He couldn't say no after all that. Yeah, we can be friends. Amari's face widened in a goofy grin and threw her hands up. Yay! Now let's have some milkshakes, new friend. He watched her hop down off of the hill and couldn't help but smile at her childish nature. This girl, she was the strongest person he had ever met. Yeah, little paragraph or sentences she puts after the thing says, oops, we've got some feels. Yeah, she's right about that. I almost cried. That was good. Can't do more. My throat was hurting. So, check her out. She's a good writer. Yeah, I really like her stuff. I do. It's good. Follow her. I will put the link in the description, obviously. Yeah. I am going to end the video here. You will hear me in the next one. Bye-bye.